Today is Thursday, Parashat Tzav. This coming Shabbat is called Shabbat Hagadol, the Great Shabbat. Why is it called the Great Shabbat? Well, our sages explain that that Shabbat was the 10th of Nisan. The Jewish people went out of Egypt on Thursday morning, the 15th of Nisan. That year, then the 10th of Nisan was Shabbat. Actually, just like this year, the 10th of Nisan is going to be on Shabbat. That Shabbat, the Jewish people were given the mitzvah to tie a lamb to their bedpost in preparation 4 days later to make it as a sacrifice to Hashem. Now the Egyptians were wondering, why do you have a lamb there? What are you doing with it? Now let's remember that the lamb was the deity, the god of the Egyptians. And the Jewish people told them, this lamb, we're going to slaughter in offering to Hashem, and Hashem is going to be killing all the firstborns of the Egyptians. So the firstborn of the Egyptians went to their fathers, to the people who were leading the country and saying, please let them go already. And then according to the Midrash, there was a war that started between the Bechorot and the rest of the Egyptians. That's why the Pasuk says, Amakeh Bitzrayim Bivchorehem. The one who hit the Egyptians by their firstborns. So there was a big unrest because of that. But the great miracle was that even though the Jewish people were slaves actually at that time for decades in Egypt, their slave masters, their taskmasters, did not raise a hand against them, did not fight them on the opposite. They actually were afraid of them after all the 10 plagues. And that was a great miracle that they were saved from the taskmasters, from the slave masters on that Shabbat. That's why that Shabbat, which was the 10th of Nisan, was called Shabbat Hagadol because of that great miracle that happened. There's another explanation that is brought by the Tur. Tur states that actually over the years, the Jewish people who had lived in Egypt for so many decades were influenced by the Egyptian culture and their worshipping of the lamb, of the Taleh, by the way, which is the Aries, is the sign for that month, the month of Nisan. So some of them even had some kind of connection with that idol worshipping. But on that Shabbat, that was the Shabbat that the Jewish people showed their entire trust in Hashem, their bitachon b'Hashem, and they're subduing that idea of idol worshipping by taking the lamb, tying it to the bedpost in preparation to slaughter it on the 14th of Nisan. That was a great Shabbat when there was a definite, a kind of transformation in terms of their commitment to Hashem and their commitment to serving Hashem rather than being influenced by the idol worshipping that they were so accustomed to living in Egypt for all those years. So that's another reason why it's called the Shabbat Hagadol. The Pri Chadash brings another reason. When a person becomes bar mitzvah, he's called a gadol, he's a mature person. The Jewish people were just given 2 mitzvot. One mitzvah was Kiddush HaChodesh, which is sanctifying the new moon, and the second mitzvah was the mitzvah of doing Korban Pesach, the slaughtering of the lamb as an offering, as a Korban on Pesach. The sanctifying of the new moon was already the 10th of the month. It was already, the moon was already, had started. That will be the mitzvah that they will fulfill in the next month. But that mitzvah of Korban Pesach was the first mitzvah that they did on that day. In other words, that nation became a gadol, became just like a boy becoming bar mitzvah and starting to observe the mitzvot. We put the tefillin on him on that day. That's the first mitzvah that he does. He's a beginning of mitzvot is then called a gadol when he turns bar mitzvah. Also, the Jewish people, according to the Pri Chadash, becomes a gadol on that Shabbat, which was the 10th of Nisan that precedes the Exodus from Egypt. The Khatam Sofer brings another reason. They made on that Shabbat the commitment to Hashem. And Hashem is referred to Ha'el, Hagadol, Hagibor V'Anor, Hashem, the great. And therefore that Shabbat Hagadol, that the Shabbat that they committed to Hagadol, to Hashem, is called then Shabbat Hagadol. The Abu Darham brings another reason. The other reason is that there are many Shabbatot, there's certain Shabbatot in the year are called based on the Haftarah, the first word of the Haftarah. The Haftarah of this week, actually at the end of the Haftarah, it says, Hina Anochi Shoreh Lachem et Eliah Navi, I'm going to send you Eliah Navi, Lifnei Yom Bo, before the day, so Eliah Navi will come and announce the coming of the Mashiach, the day that will be Yom HaGadol ve'Hanora. The great day, and that great day is Yom HaGadol. Therefore, since the Haftarah includes the word Gadol, that we call Shabbat Hagadol. That's the Shabbat that precedes the coming of Mashiach, that precedes Pesach. There is yet another reason that is brought, according to some sages. On this Shabbat, the drasha that the Rabbi gives usually is very long because there are so many details associated with Pesach, in terms of preparation, in terms of what is kosher for Pesach, not kosher for Pesach. How do you purge the chametz from the vessels, from the pots, the pans? There's a lot of drashot. There's drashot on how to run the seder in terms of kadesh, shulchatz, karpasya. So the drasha is so long, and but the fact that it's very long, it seems that Shabbat is very gadol, is very big, because it's so long, so great. The drasha is so big, so that's why Shabbat Hagadol. I'll say one other reason that I heard once, that when Hashem created the world, Sunday had Monday as a pair, Tuesday had Wednesday, Thursday had Friday. Shabbat said, how about what pairs with me? And Hashem told Shabbat, will come a time when there will be a Jewish people who observe the Shabbat. And that will be sort of your mate. You're coming together with you as Am Yisrael. When does the Jewish people become a nation? At the Exodus from Egypt. So on that Shabbat that precedes the Exodus, when they tie that lamb to the bedpost in preparation for the Exodus, the Korban Pesach, the Exodus from Egypt, the Shabbat became a Gadol because now it has the Jewish people who come together with Shabbat to observe it. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen, and Chag Pesach kasher v'sameach.